want to be just famous. I want to be useful. I want to connect people through music. Have you ever heard a voice so pure, so effortlessly powerful, that it feels less like a performance and more like a brush with something otherworldly? It belongs to Dimash Kudaibergen, often spelled Kudaibergen, the Kazakh vocal powerhouse, whose mind-boggling 6-octave range has left audiences from Beijing to New York completely speechless. He doesn't just hit notes that defy human anatomy, he commands them with a thunderous emotional depth that completely bypasses language barriers. But if you truly want to understand the living symphony that is Dimash, you have to look past the global internet sensation and look into the roots of the boy who grew up in the quiet city of Aktobe, Kazakhstan.
Dimash Kudaibergen's vocal abilities are, without exaggeration, a once-in-a-generation phenomenon. Often hailed by vocal coaches and music enthusiasts worldwide as one of the greatest living singers, his voice defies conventional human limits and redefines what is physically possible in vocal performance. Here is what makes Dimash's singing so profoundly extraordinary.
Do you remember the first time you heard him? If you're like most people, you probably went through the exact same stages of grief. First, confusion. Then suspicion. You probably thought, there is no way this is live. This has to be auto-tuned. This is lip-synced. And finally, sheer, undeniable awe. In a world where studio magic can turn anyone into a pop star, we've grown skeptical of perfection. But then comes a voice that shatters everything we thought we knew about human anatomy. A voice that drops down to a rumbling bass, sweeps effortlessly through a soaring tenor, and rockets into a piercing operatic soprano, often in the exact same breath. He has a 6-octave vocal range, classical training that rivals the great opera legends, and a fan base so fiercely dedicated they call themselves the Deers. He is, without exaggeration, one of the greatest vocalists alive today.
Dimash arrived on the American reality television show, The World's Best, in 2019, not as a novice seeking discovery, but as a fully formed phenomenon. Yet his journey on the CBS network competition ended not with a triumphant shower of confetti, but with a shocking voluntary withdrawal during the championship rounds. This unprecedented exit was not an admission of defeat. Rather, it was a profound collision between Western reality television tropes, strict cultural principles, and uncompromising artistic integrity. To understand the catalyst for his departure, one must look at the immediate context of the semi-final rounds. The show's producers structured the brackets so that Dimash found himself competing directly against 2 child prodigies: 12-year-old Kazakh vocalist Danilia Tulshova and 13-year-old Indian pianist Lydia Nathaswaram. Following a breathtaking and technically complex rendition of Adagio, Dimash made an unexpected address to host James Corden and the panel of judges. Speaking through a translator, he stated that as a 24-year-old adult and an established professional, he could not in good conscience compete against children. He respectfully withdrew, asking that the younger talents be allowed to advance in his place. While the American judging panel largely perceived this as a baffling subversion of the competition format, Dimash's decision was deeply rooted in his Kazakh cultural heritage. In Kazakh traditions, there is a profound emphasis on respect, both for one's elders and for the nurturing of youth. For an adult who had already achieved master-level proficiency and international acclaim, to use his extensive experience to defeat children in a televised arena would be viewed not as a victory, but as a dishonorable display of ego. Stepping aside was an act of cultural duty, a way to clear the path for the next generation, rather than stifling them for personal gain. However, the children were merely the final catalyst in a growing friction between the artist and the reality television machine.
He is the definition of a generational talent, and in 2026 his global takeover is reaching new heights. from leading the groundbreaking musical reality show Voice Beyond Horizon to preparing for a historic blockbuster concert in Budapest alongside legends like Placido Domingo and Hauser, Dimash Kudaibergen is redefining what it means to be a modern artist. His voice bridges the ancient Silk Road with sold-out arenas, singing in over a dozen languages and uniting a fiercely dedicated global fan base known as the Deers.
Yet, alongside the awe comes a glaring paradox. While he regularly sells out massive arenas from London to New York, the mainstream Western music machine has largely kept him at arm's length. This isn't just a story about a spectacular singer. It is a story about the clash between uncompromising cultural pride and the rigid, fast-paced machinery of Western pop.
By the spring of 2026, Dimash Kudaibergen has solidified his position not merely as a generational vocal talent, but as a cultural diplomat, a budding television producer, and a profound inspiration for global philanthropy. The first half of the year has marked a period of significant evolution for the Kazakh star, characterized by major new media projects, expanding diplomatic responsibilities, and an unwavering commitment to his core personal values. Stepping into the producer's chair,
When we talk about the greatest of all time in music, people usually argue about eras, record sales, influence, or songwriting. Some will say it's about legacy. Others will say it's about emotion. And honestly, those arguments never end. But when the conversation shifts to pure vocal ability, raw human capability, the discussion becomes a lot quieter. Because eventually one name enters the room, Dimash Kudaibergen, and suddenly, even trained musicians stop debating and start reacting.
A young man stood on an American television stage, having just delivered a vocal performance that defied biological reality, sweeping across 6 octaves with terrifying ease. The judges were breathless, the audience was on its feet, and the trophy was effectively his for the taking. Then he did something almost no one in the history of competitive reality television has ever done. He asked for the microphone, thanked the panel, and voluntarily withdrew from the competition. He stepped down because he saw the younger child contestants backstage, and he refused to let his established career overshadow their futures.
He is actively changing the game for modern vocal performance and acting as a powerful bridge between cultures across the globe. What is truly fascinating about his rise to fame is exactly how he did it. He managed to completely bypass the traditional, Western-dominated music industry machine. Instead, he built a massive worldwide fan base on his own terms by mixing intense classical musical training with the power of digital distribution and a genuine empathy for different cultures. To really understand the full scope of the Dimash phenomenon, we have to look at the whole picture. That starts with diving into the family and cultural roots that originally shaped his sound and breaking down the technique behind his mind-blowing 6-octave vocal range. But his impact goes deeper than just his voice. It is equally important to explore his scholarly contributions to the study of music and look at how he has evolved by 2026, growing beyond just performing to become an active music producer and a dedicated humanitarian diplomat. Born on May 24, 1994, Dimash was wrapped in music from his very first breath. There is a common mix-up that he was born in a place called October, but that is actually just a slight phonetic confusion with his beautiful hometown of Aktobi. His family legacy is deeply steeped in traditional Kazakh culture. Following a beautiful Kazakh custom, he was largely raised by his loving grandparents. While his parents, Kanat Aitbayev and Svetlana Aitbayeva, both highly respected, honored musicians in Kazakhstan, nurtured his gifts from the sidelines. By the age of 5, he was already taking formal vocal lessons and performing locally, blessed with an undeniable absolute pitch.
Hashtag an astonishing 6-octave vocal range. While most professional singers are thrilled to master a 3-octave range, Dimash commands an astounding 6 octaves, spanning roughly from F1 to D8. He can dive into cavernous, resonant bass notes that rumble in the chest, and in the same breath, soar into stratospheric, bird-like whistle notes that surpass the highest keys on a piano.
This wasn't a PR stunt or a negotiated exit. It was Dimash Kudaibergen operating exactly as his traditional Kazakh upbringing dictated, with a quiet, radical decency that prioritizes collective dignity over individual glory. In an era where global stardom usually demands the total surrender of personal boundaries and a relentless pursuit of the spotlight, Dimash represents a profound anomaly.
To call Dimash a singer almost feels inaccurate. He's more like a phenomenon, a once-in-a-generation vocal anomaly who took the known limits of the human voice and shattered them completely. This is why Dimash Kudaibergen might truly be the greatest vocalist alive. Reason number 1, the impossible vocal range. Most professional singers spend years mastering 2 octaves. Elite vocalists may comfortably control 3, maybe 4. Dimash, he casually moves through over 6 octaves and 5 semitones. That number alone barely sounds real. To put it into perspective, a piano has 88 keys. Most singers only operate within a small fraction of that instrument.
Early 2026 saw Dimash stepping beyond his traditional role as a performer to make his mark as an executive producer and initiator. In February, the highly anticipated music and travel reality show, Voice Beyond Horizon, premiered globally on Chinese networks Hunan TV and Mango TV, as well as Kazakhstan TV. This ambitious co-production between China and Kazakhstan brought together top vocalists from 6 different countries, including Italy, Malaysia, and Serbia, to journey across Kazakhstan's breathtaking landscapes, from the Caspian Sea to the mountains of Almaty. The project was designed by Dimash not only to highlight young global talent, but to serve as a musical love letter, introducing the world to the rich heritage and scenery of his homeland. Alongside his production endeavors, Dimash maintained his electrifying stage presence, notably delivering show-stopping performances at both the opening and closing ceremonies of the 2026 Tmall Newty Festival in Shanghai. Global diplomacy and the power of the Deers.
Here is a tribute to the phenomenon of Dimash, and a deep dive into why his greatest strengths, his boundless genre and his unwavering devotion to his homeland, are the exact reasons he defies the traditional Western mold. To hear Dimash Kudaibergen sing for the first time is to experience a shift in gravity. It is a moment of pure, transcendent realization that the human voice can bridge the gap between the earthly and the divine. With a vocal range spanning over 6 octaves, Dimash doesn't just sing, he paints with sound, effortlessly gliding from a resonant guttural bass to a crystalline whistle tone that seems to pierce the heavens.
Behind the scenes, the relationship between Dimash's camp and the show's production had allegedly been fraught. It is widely understood among his fan base that Dimash agreed to participate in the world's best under the explicit assurance that he would not be pitted against children. When the producers orchestrated that exact scenario, likely to manufacture the high-stakes emotional drama that American reality TV thrives upon, it was seen as a breach of trust. Furthermore, the fundamental format of the show was inherently hostile to Dimash's specific brand of artistry. Dimash is an epic storyteller. His performances are meticulously crafted, slowly building tension as he traverses from rich baritone, lows up into soaring, resonant head voice, ultimately climaxing with piercing whistle notes. This level of dynamic vocal exploration requires time.
Сәлем достар. Бүгін мен үшін ерекше күн. Достар мен сыйлап бір тамаша көлік мінгізіп жатыр. Достарыма үлкен рахмет айтқым келеді. Аман болыңыздар, бар болыңыздар. Біз кеттік ал.
But how did a young man from Kazakhstan capture the attention of the entire globe? How does his voice actually work on a technical level? And why, in an industry dominated by English-language pop, has a singer who frequently performs in Kazakh, Russian and Mandarin become an unstoppable international phenomenon? Dimash Kudaibergen was born in 1994 in Aktobe, Kazakhstan. And honestly, if you were going to build a musical prodigy in a lab, this is exactly the environment you would place him in. His parents, Kanat Etbayev and Svetlana Etbayeva, are both highly celebrated singers in Kazakhstan. In Kazakh culture, grandparents play a major role in raising the eldest child, so Dimash was heavily influenced by his grandparents, who immersed him in traditional music, poetry, and the national instrument of Kazakhstan, the dombra.
Love you。他干嘛呀？怎么溜达走了？出来啊！哎呀，干嘛？什么意思？这是啊！
But how did this Kazakh multi-instrumentalist become one of the most mesmerizing vocalists on the planet? Dimash's vocal range isn't just wide in the way people casually describe great singers. It's almost orchestral in structure, like multiple voices living inside one person. When people say he spans roughly 6 octaves, often cited from around F1 to D8, what they're really pointing to is his ability to move seamlessly across distinct vocal registers that most singers spend years just trying to stabilize individually. At the very bottom, he can access a deep bass baritone register, producing notes that carry a dark, resonant weight. These aren't weak or airy lows either. They have body and projection, which is rare because many singers who can reach low notes can't sustain them with clarity or tone.
Handsome. So cool.
To truly understand the artistic soul and the deliberate professional decisions of Dimash Kudaibergen, we have to look past the stage lights and dive into the socio-cultural environment of his upbringing in Aktobe. He wasn't just born into a family with a casual interest in music. He was born into a living legacy where melody and heritage were the central pillars of everyday existence. Having that kind of professional blueprint at home gave Dimash a profound education in the industry from day one, instilling in him a philosophy that fiercely values artistic integrity over chasing quick commercial expedients. But the true emotional and cultural core of his story, the element that gives his performances such a deep, resonant weight, comes from Neber. This is a profound Kazakh tradition, where the eldest grandchild is raised directly by the grandparents. It is far more than just familial care. It is a deliberate, sacred passing of the torch, designed to ensure ancestral wisdom survives and thrives. Yet, his early years weren't a loud, glamour-filled story. Off stage, Dimash was incredibly introverted, deeply modest, and intensely cautious. He was the kind of boy who chose to spend hours isolated in a room, obsessively practicing vocal scales rather than socializing. For him, music wasn't a shallow path to fame. It was an absolute sanctuary. His destiny truly began to shift when he stepped onto the international competitive stage. In 2015, he won the prestigious Grand Prix at the Slaviansky Bazaar in Vitebsk, Belarus, a major platform known for launching massive Eastern European vocal talent. But it was his groundbreaking run in 2017 on the Chinese television show Singer that set the internet completely on fire. He was the youngest contestant and a wild-card competitor in a fiercely competitive arena. The exact moment he opened his mouth to sing a haunting, skyscraping rendition of Daniel Balavoine's SOS d'un terrien en détresse, the world changed overnight.
Hashtag flawless register transitions. What truly sets Dimash apart is not just the extreme notes he can hit, but how he hits them. He possesses an uncanny ability to transition seamlessly between his chest voice, mixed voice, head voice, and the extremely rare flageolet, or whistle, register. His shifts are so smooth and effortless that they completely blur the lines between classical operatic technique and modern pop styling. Hashtag absolute mastery of technique. With a deep foundation in classical and bel canto training, Dimash has supreme control over his instrument. Breath support, he can sustain powerful, soaring belts for incredibly long durations without faltering, losing pitch, or showing signs of fatigue. Vibrato control. His vibrato is precise, shifting effortlessly from straight, haunting tones to rich, rapid oscillations depending on the emotional demand of the song. Dynamic agility. He can execute complex vocal runs, trills, and melismas with the precision of a master instrumentalist, proving that his agility is just as impressive as his power. Hashtag raw. Unadulterated authenticity. In an industry that frequently relies on auto-tune and melodyne, Dimash stands as a living testament to pure, raw talent. His live performances often sound identical to, or even better than, his studio recordings. Vocal coaches frequently analyze his live concerts only to find his pitch completely flawless, proving that modern pitch correction software is entirely redundant for a voice of his caliber. Hashtag transcendent emotional delivery. Beyond the sheer biomechanical wonder of his vocal cords, Dimash is a master storyteller. He doesn't just sing the notes, he embodies them. Whether he is singing a heartbreaking ballad like SOS d'un terrien en détresse, or a thunderous operatic crossover like Olympico, he pours a visceral, captivating emotion into every lyric, often crossing language barriers to move audiences to tears. Simply put, listening to Dimash Kudaibergen isn't just listening to music. It is witnessing the absolute pinnacle of human vocal capability.
He has conquered the world stage, packing historic stadiums and commanding a fan base so devoted they refer to themselves as deers. Yet, he has done it while fiercely protecting the sanctity of his inner world and remaining anchored to the ancient traditions of his homeland. To understand Dimash, you have to look past the arena lights and the viral reaction videos. You have to look at the daily reality of a global wanderer who is firmly rooted at home. He continues to live a life deeply intertwined with his family, particularly his parents and grandparents. Under traditional Kazakh custom, the eldest grandson is brought up directly by the elders to absorb ancestral wisdom. This isn't a symbolic arrangement, it is the core architecture of his character. When he is not executing high-stakes global tours or filming his expansive documentary, his days are spent in quiet study.
Dimash uses his voice almost like he's playing the entire keyboard. He can descend into a deep bass register that sounds dark, cinematic, and thunderous, and moments later launch into whistle notes so high they sound almost electronic. Not strained, not forced, controlled. That's the scary part.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Dimash Kudaibergen.
Dimash's influence has increasingly transcended entertainment, shifting heavily into the realm of international diplomacy and humanitarianism. In late 2025, the United Nations International Organization for Migration, IOM, elevated him to the role of Global Goodwill Ambassador, recognizing his efforts to advocate for migrant rights and promote inclusivity during his worldwide tours. In early 2026, his cultural impact was further cemented when he was awarded the Medal of Cultural Ambassador of the Turkic world. This spirit of global unity and compassion is brilliantly mirrored by his dedicated fanbase, known as Dears, who have translated their admiration into tangible, worldwide charitable action throughout the spring of 2026. Argentina, in May, local fans donated musical instruments to a regional school and inaugurated a music room named in Dimash's honor, ensuring his legacy fosters the next generation of musicians. Patagonia, Latin American fans recently sponsored the planting of saplings to aid in the restoration of Patagonia's vital forests. Kazakhstan, in anticipation of his May birthday, fans in Astana launched the Warm Hands, Clothes and Hearts charity drive to support newborns. His cultural reach also continues to permeate unexpected avenues. In May 2026, his music was featured on the Spanish radio station Radio Voz, and a Spanish gymnast successfully clinched a medal using a breathtaking routine choreographed to one of Dimash's powerful vocal performances. The man behind the voice, personal life, and relationships. Despite his towering global fame, Dimash's personal life, particularly his relationship status, remains a topic of intense public interest.
The world's best, governed by tight broadcast schedules, routinely forced performers to compress their acts into frantic 1 to 2 minute segments. For an artist whose mastery lies in complex, sweeping arrangements, being forced to butcher his own music into digestible, bite-sized TV moments was an immense and frustrating artistic restriction. The immediate aftermath of his withdrawal created one of the most unscripted and dramatic moments in recent television history. The American judges, Faith Hill, Drew Barrymore, and most notably, RuPaul, were visibly agitated. RuPaul levied sharp criticism, arguing that Dimash knew the rules of the competition when he signed up and was disrespecting the platform by quitting. This reaction highlighted a stark cultural divide, the American ethos of winning at all costs versus Dimash's prioritization of honor and artistic boundaries. Ultimately, Dimash Kudaibergen's departure from the world's best secured his legacy far more effectively than winning the trophy ever could have. While the young pianist Lydia Nadaswaram went on to deservedly win the competition, Dimash walked away with his principles intact. He proved to his rapidly expanding global audience that he was not an artist willing to compromise his cultural values or his musical integrity for the sake of a network television narrative. By choosing to step down, he elevated himself above the confines of the reality TV format, cementing his status not just as a generational vocal talent, but as an artist of unwavering character.
For millions of his devoted fans, affectionately known as the Dears, he is not merely a pop star. He is a cultural explorer, a bridge between civilizations, and a once-in-a-generation talent who translates pure, unfiltered emotion. When he stands on stage, he doesn't just perform a song, he takes the audience on a spiritual odyssey. But this exact brilliance leads to a question so many of his fans rightfully ask. Why hasn't the mainstream Western music industry fully embraced him? Is it his genre? Is it because he champions his homeland? The answer is a complex mix of rigid industry mechanics, cultural differences, and Dimash's own unapologetic authenticity. The genre without a cage.
алда мен дыхание алшы, ішпен ал, ішпен. Мына жүзін көтермейсің, демалған кезде, ішімен ал. Жоқ, жоқ.
By the time most kids are just learning to tie their shoes, Dimash was already taking the stage. He started piano classes at age 5 and sang in a children's choir. And here is where the foundation for his superhuman voice was laid. Dimash didn't just learn to sing pop songs, he was rigorously trained in the bel canto technique. He attended the music college in Aktobe, and later the Kazakh National University of Arts, in Astana, studying classical voice. His vocal coaches quickly realized they had a generational talent on their hands. He was offered a position at the prestigious Astana Opera. For anyone else, that would be the pinnacle of a career. But Dimash turned it down. He had a different vision. He wanted to blend his classical foundation with contemporary pop, rock, and traditional Kazakh folk music. He didn't want to be confined to the opera house. He wanted to bring the opera to the stadiums. He seamlessly transitioned from a haunting, breathy lower register into a crystalline head voice, and finally into earth-shattering high notes that seemed to defy gravity. The cameras panned to the audience. People were literally in tears. The other professional singers competing against him looked completely, utterly stunned. They realized instantly that they weren't just competing against a good singer, they were competing against a vocal anomaly. Overnight, Dimash became a superstar.
Dimash, however, maintains control even in that lower spectrum, which gives his performances a grounded, almost cinematic depth. As he moves upward, he transitions into his chest voice, where most male singers are most comfortable. But this is where things already start to separate him from the average vocalist. His chest voice isn't just strong, it's highly dynamic. He can push it into powerful operatic belts or soften it into something delicate and emotional, depending on the phrasing of the song. Then comes his mixed voice and head voice, where a lot of singers begin to lose consistency. Dimash instead becomes even more fluid. He blends registers so smoothly that you often don't hear the gear shift at all. This is crucial, because in many of his performances, especially live, he'll leap across intervals that would normally expose those transitions. With him, it feels continuous, almost like a violin gliding across strings, rather than a voice jumping between registers.
Together, they raised him in an environment steeped in strict, traditional Kazakh customs. His childhood was an ongoing education in respecting elders, treating the homeland as sacred, and carrying the nomadic oral tradition forward through song. You can actually see this powerful lineage stamped permanently into his very identity. The naming convention itself tells a story. The suffix Yuli translates to son of, connecting him directly to his father, Kanat, while his surname acts as a living, breathing tribute to his grandfather, Kudaibergen. It is exactly this deeply rooted foundation that grounds his towering vocal technique, ensuring that every time he performs, he isn't just singing notes, he is echoing the history of his people.
Oh, I know.
His fiercely loyal fan base proudly call themselves Deers, a name Dimash himself lovingly chose because he views his supporters not as distant faces in a crowd, but as a dear family bound by a shared love for peace, art, and unity. Offstage, despite commanding millions of streams and filling stadiums globally, that shy boy from Aktobe remains unchanged, deeply humble, endlessly devoted to his family, and quietly proving that a soul completely dedicated to its craft can cross any border on Earth. It's incredible to think that this same introverted boy went on to grace the world's most prestigious stages, including the UNESCO Gala, while effortlessly dominating digital music charts across Russia, China, and Europe. But if you ask his fans, the deers, what makes him a true internet phenomenon, they'll tell you it goes way beyond his divine vocals. It's the way Dimash treats his audience. In an industry full of distant superstars, he constantly pulls back the curtain, sharing raw rehearsal footage, cozy behind-the-scenes moments, and genuine messages of kindness.
He is a dedicated scholar, holding a master's degree in composition and continuing advanced doctoral research in musicology. He balances grueling studio hours with the grounding embrace of his family, retreating from the noise of fame into the quiet discipline of his craft. This instinct for preservation extends to his romantic life, which he guards with a sacred, protective intensity. He has never publicly confirmed a romantic relationship or marriage. He intentionally separates his public persona as an artistic force from his private heart, shielding those he loves from the glare of industry speculation. It is a deliberate choice to maintain a perimeter around what matters most, refusing to feed the machinery of celebrity gossip. This restraint is born from those core Kazakh ethics: decency, respect, and nobility of spirit.
So cute.
He likes you.
God bless you.
He is 1 year old. A boy.
You don't have girlfriend?
I'm looking for a boyfriend.
Many singers can hit one impressive high note in a studio after multiple takes. Dimash does it live, in front of thousands of people, while moving across the stage, while emotionally performing the song. There are moments in his performances where audiences genuinely stop cheering because they're trying to process what they just heard. And what makes his range even more unbelievable is the clarity. Usually when singers stretch to extremes, something suffers. The tone becomes thin. The control disappears. The pitch becomes unstable. With Dimash, somehow it doesn't. His low notes still carry weight. His high notes still carry emotion. It feels less like listening to one singer, and more like listening to multiple voices trapped inside the same human body. That's why people started calling the human synthesizer. Because sometimes his voice genuinely doesn't sound human.
You know why I don't want to take my glasses?
No.
No. Because it's...
As of spring 2026, Dimash remains single, a conscious choice rooted in his deep respect for family and the institution of marriage. During an interview at the Freedom Insight Forum in Astana in April 2026, he candidly addressed the persistent rumors and questions regarding his love life. Demonstrating a grounded and mature perspective, Dimash explained that he takes the idea of starting a family incredibly seriously. He emphasized that he is cautious about making a rapid commitment, stating, "I'm concerned that if I give in to my emotions, I could harm a woman's life. I think that's because I value and respect women so deeply."
To understand the disconnect with the West, we first have to look at the genre. Mainstream Western pop, particularly in the US, thrives on a very specific formula, the 2.5 to -3 minute track. It favors repetitive hooks, steady beats, and easily categorizable genres that fit neatly into curated Spotify playlists, like trap, synth pop, or indie folk. Dimash's music is the exact opposite. He is university trained in both classical and contemporary music, allowing him to fuse operatic grandeur with pop rock and traditional folk. His tracks are sprawling, cinematic epics. A single song might take the listener on a 6-minute emotional roller coaster, building from a delicate whisper to an earth-shattering crescendo. The Western music industry often doesn't know how to market classical crossover or operatic pop outside of niche theater venues, PBS specials, or reality TV competitions. Furthermore, Dimash has openly stated that for him, musical classification is a cage. He refuses to be boxed into a single, easily marketable genre, which makes corporate record executives who rely on predictable products hesitant. The language and cultural barrier. Is the West hesitant because he promotes Kazakhstan and the Kazakh language? In a way, yes, but not out of malice. Rather, it is born out of industry insularity. The Anglo-centric machine, historically. The US mainstream radio is notoriously impenetrable for artists who don't sing in English. While Latin pop and K-pop have made historic breakthroughs recently, they did so by adapting heavily to Western pop structures and investing billions into localized PR machines.
He didn't just win the hearts of the audience, he sparked a global wildfire. YouTube reactors found the footage, and suddenly vocal coaches from Los Angeles to London were dissecting his performances, trying to figure out how a human being could make those sounds. Act 3, the anatomy of an alien voice. So, let's get technical. What exactly makes Dimash's voice so spectacular? Most professional singers have a vocal range of about 2 to 3 octaves. Dimash has a documented range of 6 octaves and 1 semitone. He can hit a D2, which is a deep, resonant bass note, all the way up to a D8, a whistle note so high it sits near the very top of a piano keyboard. But having a massive range isn't what makes him a master. It's his control over that range. Vocal coaches frequently point out his unparalleled mastery of mixed voice and false vocal fold retraction. In plain English, he knows exactly how to manipulate the muscles in his throat to create maximum resonance without destroying his vocal cords. Take a song like Love of Tired Swans. He begins with a soft, breathy, almost fragile tone. This requires immense breath control. It's actually harder to sing quietly with good technique than it is to belt. But as the song builds, he engages his operatic training. He lowers his larynx, creates space in the back of his throat, and unleashes a wall of sound that feels big enough to fill a cathedral. And then there's his whistle register.
Your dears. Hi. Oh. Wow. You are so cute.
I'm not cold too. Real man. Oh my god, I miss you too.
Wow! She's so happiness. She's so shy.
Don't cry, don't cry. Everything is okay. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.